Welcome to Derek's Zoo Videos, one of the other channels that brings the zoo right to you. Today, we're touring for the first time in a while at the Indianapolis Zoo. When I first visited the Indy Zoo in 2011, aside from a few quirks like the exhibits being organized by biome rather than geographically or by animal type, and the more notable marine mammal collection, the zoo offered a fairly typical visitor experience. 13 years later, however, that statement couldn't be further from the truth. The Indianapolis Zoo now offers some of the most unique experiences found at any zoo. Earlier this year, the zoo continued that trend with the grand opening of the International Chimpanzee Complex, one of the most atypical ape exhibits ever built. But it is arguably not even the most unique ape exhibit at its own zoo, thanks to the existence of the International Orangutan Center. Celebrating its 10-year anniversary this year, the IOC opened in 2014 after 3 years of development. Rather than trying to recreate the dense rainforest habitat of Indonesia, the architects behind the IOC aimed to build a functional forest that would stimulate the orangutan's physical, social, and intellectual abilities. The center was especially designed to perform cognitive research, so in a sense, it is more of a public research center than a zoo exhibit. With that in mind, let's begin the tour. The International Orangutan Center is located roughly in the middle of the zoo's 64 acres, creating an iconic centerpiece that can be seen from all around the zoo. We'll begin our walkthrough on the right side of the complex with a simple glass-fronted room where you may observe one of the orangutans interacting with a keeper or be lucky enough to have a close-up encounter with one of the apes yourself. On my visit, however, it was empty, but we will see where the orang with access to it was hanging out instead later on. For now, it's time to head inside to the main atrium. In here is as close to a standard zoo exhibit as the complex gets. In the center is the primary indoor habitat, where you'll typically find a few of the orangutans hanging out. While you may still see the apes on the floor, the room is designed to give them access to as much of the vertical space as possible. The main habitat is connected by 2 overhead tunnels to the smaller Learning Studio exhibit. This is where the laboratory feel of the complex really comes through. Evidently, today's lesson was on appropriate social interactions, as I was able to watch a playful wrestling match between Max and Mila, the zoo's pair of 8-year-olds, who have been playmates since they were young. Mila was the first orangutan born at the zoo back in 2016, while Max arrived alongside his mother as rescues the same year. Both Max and his mother were suffering from health issues when they arrived, and though his mother sadly passed away a few years after their arrival, Max has recovered and continued to thrive. Supervising their shenanigans was Nicky, who celebrated her 40th birthday this year. Nicky was one of the 8 orangutans who were brought to the zoo for the complex's opening in 2014. She previously lived at Zoo Atlanta and is noted as being inquisitive, easygoing, and confident. Surrounding the 2 indoor habitats, you can spend your time learning all about orangutans through the abundance of signage and displays. As we move back outside, it's worth noting that you can walk up to the towering slanted windows that form the front of the atrium to look directly into the exhibit, which is your best chance to see the orangutans up close if they're on the ground. Above the atrium sits the 150-foot-high Beacon of Hope, an LED light that the orangutans can actually switch on themselves as a symbol of the conservation efforts taking place to preserve orangutans in Borneo and Sumatra. As you move down the ramp and around to the right, you're brought to one of the 2 outdoor yards, known as the West Oasis. A simple, round, grassy yard doesn't seem ideal for a rainforest-dwelling ape, but I assume the simple design is to encourage the orangutans to spend more time climbing atop the Hutan Trail, the most spectacular element of the entire complex, a network of towers and platforms connected by aerial cables and bridges that allows the orangutans to climb 80 feet high above the ground, just as they would in the wild. The Hutan Trail is also connected to the North Oasis, nearly identical to the west. and the small indoor space we saw at the start, known as the East Outpost, which comes with a more complex climbing tower. Typically, what I've seen on my visits is that one orangutan will have access to a single tower, while one or two others will have access to the rest of the trail. On the visitor side, although it wasn't running on my last visit, there is a slow-moving skyline ride that takes you 50 feet in the air to potentially get you much closer to the apes on the towers. Even if the orangutans don't cooperate, you'll still be offered some amazing views of the zoo and downtown Indianapolis. Orangutans are the most arboreal of all the great apes, spending about 80% of their lives in the trees, while the Hutan Trail allows the Indy Zoo's orangs to climb 80 feet in the air, wild orangutans may climb at heights of 120 feet or more. These apes can move confidently through the trees at such heights thanks to their specially designed bodies. An orangutan's arms are significantly longer than their legs, their feet are just as dexterous as their hands, allowing them to grasp branches with all four limbs, and their joints are extremely flexible, allowing for increased mobility. With the arrival this year of Ember, a 43-year-old female from the Pittsburgh Zoo, the International Orangutan Center is now home to 11 total orangutans of the Bornean, Sumatran, and hybrid varieties. In addition to Ember and the 3 we met earlier, the complex houses 4 adult males. Ozzy, the oldest, will turn 47 later this year and is described as a gentle giant. 30-year-old Charlie is described as more timid and an expert nest builder. 23-year-old Basan is Mila's father, while the 2 older orangutans are mixed Bornean Sumatran hybrids. Basan is a pure Sumatran orangutan, which is why he received a breeding recommendation in the form of Surhi, a full Sumatran female, who I believe is the female I saw climbing around the towers on my last visit. The 4th adult male is 20-year-old Rocky, who came to the Indy Zoo when he was 5, after spending the first few years of his life in the film industry before being reunited with his mother Katie, who now also lives in Indianapolis. The final orangutan at the zoo is Lightning Lucy, who earned her nickname following a successful weight loss journey after she arrived at the zoo nearly 100 pounds over the appropriate weight for an orangutan of her size. And that will conclude our look at the spectacularly bizarre International Orangutan Center. Awarded by the AZA for the innovation in its design, the IOC has received mixed reactions from zoo fanatics, but it can't be denied that the orangutans here are afforded the ability to climb like few other zoo orangutans are, and that in turn creates a memorable viewing experience like no other.